all the way from France and the North Shore. We have Laurent and Tonchik. And yes, he's still celebrating the World Cup. And we have also with us Amanda Lees, one of our Vice Chancellor Award winners for the Teaching and Learning from 2017. So we have very distinguished guests with us today. We also have joining us live from the front desk there, Victorio, aka Clown Martin. There we go. So yes, we've got just going to have a discussion today with our guests. They've been experimenting with their curriculum with public environmental health and doing some cool things with social media and stretching students' boundaries and their understanding. So it's been interesting to follow along, and be great to get their thoughts on what's happened and the feedback, and some hints on how to redesign the curriculum from Amanda and Laurent. So over to you guys.
Okay, thank you.
And for the record, we haven't done cool things. We've done super cool things.
Super cool. Oh, wow. Looking forward to hearing about it.
Okay, so just to sort of provide some sort of context. So this 2 years ago, our sort of Department of Public Environmental Health moved to our South Campus down in Manukau, which has a sort of a high proportion of like Maori and Pacific community, and so it was sort of the impetus, the catalyst for us sort of re-examining our whole sort of program in terms of trying to better meet the needs of those particular learners, but then in terms of our sort of discipline of public and environmental health, thinking about the way that the workforce is changing, that we're now sort of trying to prepare students for an unknown future. And so sort of shifting away from sort of content heavy courses to courses that are sort of around those 21st century skills around sort of grit and perseverance, critical thinking, and in doing so sort of shifting the sort of role of the teacher a bit sideways, so encouraging that sort of student sort of directed learning.
So what is actually public environmental health? It sounds very amorphous.
Yes, well, it's very interesting actually, because traditionally, sort of globally, there's been sort of two sort of perspectives. One is that public health is sort of like an umbrella term, and within that, there's lots of different types of public health. So there's sort of environmental protection, there's sort of health and safety around food and environmental issues, there's things like control of infectious disease. And then there's health promotion, and health promotion takes a more of a sort of a community-based approach, sort of empowering, empowering people within the community to identify issues that they want to sort of resolve to improve the health of them as individuals or for them as a community. And so at AUT, we've focused on health promotion. So our undergrad program has been in health promotion, but our postgrad program has been in public health. So with our sort of shift south, we've sort of been looking at ways to sort of make those flow a bit better. And so we've decided to sort of rename as public and environmental health, which I think is happening next year. So we're just trying to get our head around this sort of term that it's good that you asked, because it does sort of need some...
Yeah. So it kind of sounds like the approach is kind of more preventative, rather than like, I guess, most healthcare services, which are, the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff once someone's fallen off.
Yeah, definitely, but also trying to balance the sort of the role of the state and the role of the expert in helping people to, improve their health, with the importance of empowering communities to actually identify what's wrong and how that they can sort of be empowered. So I guess that's part of what our paper, Media and Communications, it has a really interesting history, because it ran up until 2007, and it was basically a lecturer from the communications school teaching the students how to build a website. So it stopped running, and then Laurent and I last year were given the task of revamping it. So I don't know if we want to talk about... No.
We've just got Noel's just joined us, so welcome, Noel.
Okay. Yeah, probably Yeah, the challenge when I've been asked to be involved with Amanda was to look at the curriculum and the paper content, and there was a lot of things from the, I would say, 80s, 90s, to be generous. So sort of looking at health promotion from a poster point of view, or also developing a website, which is very defeating the purpose of health promotion, because it's more about coding and geeky stuff. So yeah, it was quite interesting. So we decided to focus more on the media aspect rather than a website. However, using social media as well. And also, rather than to ask people to develop technical skills, it's more about conceptual thinking, basically, to submit prototypes of campaigns, but campaigns in a broad and weird way sometimes. So we challenge them basically to come out with different solutions rather than, hey, we've got an issue, so obesity, for instance, let's make a poster, let's make a pamphlet, and that's it. So it's not good enough for us. So we challenge them to think differently and to think probably even about the demographics. And in a case of one of the example dealing with gambling, it's about specifically targeted to Pacifica audience and male audience and male with a certain age. So it was quite interesting.
I think the other thing that we tried to do was to get the students thinking and having much more flexibility about the sorts of things they could explore rather than us giving them the content. And some of them found that really unsettling, the fact that they sort of had this freedom to sort of explore topics of interest. And so the first iteration, there was a lot, and I think it was slightly unexpected from our perspective, that there was this constant sort of call from them for a template and a checklist and what will I need to do and what will it look like and how will I reference it. And I think what's been really helpful is that we together have kept like a reflective blog. So every week we've reflected on what happened, what was it like for us, and that's really helped us to make changes. And this year, I mean, I think both of us, but from speaking from my perspective, it's just been a whole much improved sort of experience for us and the students. And there was much less of the sort of anxiety about what will it have to look like, and there was much more sort of freedom to sort of go along with what they wanted to.
So what were some of the key elements of that reflection, that you looked at from the first iteration to this iteration? What were some of the things that you perhaps changed or made more explicit?
Well, the first iteration, a very important point. Also, I come from design, visual arts, visual communication is called now, but design background and creative technology background. So I would call that more sort of humanities. And the paper sits within science. So there was a big shift in terms of paradigm, but also essay-driven assignments. So we've changed that. We included presentations, oral presentations, or audio and video submission. However, last year there was a lot of how can I say that? We underestimated the willingness of the students to move to a different paradigm, or the possibility also to students to understand something new. And because they've been so formatted to a specific style, and every other paper last year, every other paper didn't really embrace that kind of blended learning situation neither. So this year we spend more time at the beginning of the semester to really unpack everything, to clearly address that. And what was very helpful as well during the holidays between last year and this year, a few of the colleagues took on board new technology, as what I mean by new technology.
New for them.
New for them. So using social media in the class, or using a Wix as a blog and journal for the students to record their progress. So we were not the unique and only paper this year. So I think it's about 3 or 4 now, embracing that kind of style.
Yeah, I think in the beginning, it does feel a little bit isolating when you're the one set that are doing something different, and you sort of feel this, I don't know that this is real, but it just felt sort of like there was quite a lot of scrutiny or curiosity, and but now, as Ron said, with more people taking on bits of new tools, it sort of feels more that we're sort of building a community, and that other people have sort of seen that we're willing to give it a go, and so I think that's been a major sort of difference.
And you think there's been real value in sort of the transdisciplinary sort of collaboration between quite different areas?
I think that's been like really amazing, because I mean, we've seen the students and ourselves too. Well, for me, sort of struggle a bit with sort of working out, how do we actually work together with people who not only have different opinions about things, but come from very sort of different sort of philosophical frameworks about what learning is and what the world is like and how you might measure things that are happening in the world. But I guess that sort of really reflects what we're wanting in our students, because the reality of the sort of future workplace, or the current workplace, really is about problem solving, and the best way to sort of solve problems is to have really broad perspectives that are accessible, and what better way than to have people from really different backgrounds. And the students really responded well to us. I think like our working relationship is a lot stronger this year, and I think that really came through for the students. The students really enjoyed the fun we had, and the insights that we had into the way that we were different from each other.
Yeah, it was very hard for Amanda to deal with a world champion,
Yes.
Sometimes.
Humility is a great thing.
Yes.
She's really good.
And I know, Laurent, you've done your CMOT accreditation, and you're now a certified member of the Association for Learning Technology, and you've both been embarking on your HEA Fellowship. So a couple of our good lecturers there. But what do you see for the future? What do you see? What are you going to do next?
Well, I think we've talked a little bit about a sort of a slight anxiety that if all our colleagues start doing the things that we're doing, we won't really have a point of difference. But I think we do, because, and I think one thing that we've enjoyed sort of being involved with the students is these reflective blogs. So yes, we're using digital tools, and some of them are now being taken up by our colleagues. But in our paper, a really big part of it is around sort of supporting the students to be very self-reflective and to understand their own learning processes, and to map their sort of the cliche of their sort of learning journey, the things that they've struggled with, the multiple times that they've had to try and sort of persevere with, posting something on WordPress, and we get them to reflect on that. And so I think that's really something that we're keen to sort of keep working with, because it seems to be something that's very separate from the content and from the tools. It's more about equipping students with an understanding of how they learn, so that they're more able to cope with new tools in the future. But also, if we think it back to health promotion sort of values, that if they're going to be working with other people in the community, they're going to have a really good insight into how they can help other people learn these tools. Because you go into a community and hand everyone, give everyone the idea to use their own phone to record what's happening in their community. If you've got some filmmaking skills, then you can impart that knowledge on other people, and suddenly you've got a community that are empowered to start, doing something to improve their situation.
And I know, Laurent, you've been doing this in other curriculum areas as well, so in CoLab and in art and design, and so do you see the crossover, the relevance into other contexts beyond public environmental health as well?
Yeah. Well, actually, there is a trend now that everything merged together. So we're talking more about transdisciplinary practices, but it's only a few people who are able to understand a different paradigm. So there is a trend, especially in terms of education or even jobs, new jobs on the market. That is a kind of mashup of different things, but it's very hard for still for probably our generations and different generations to make the jump. So what I'm saying, for instance, in terms of health, and we've got more and more data-driven analytics jobs coming up. So to understand, data, to visualize data, to be able to interpret data according to your Fitbit on your wrist or iPhone or whatever. Yeah, that one. Yeah, for old people, yeah, it's very helpful. And
steps.
Yeah. I've got one counting my drinks. Yeah. And I think I'm behind. But yeah, transdisciplinary is a big word at the moment, especially from World Economic Forum things, from Nesta as well in UK. But basically, yeah, it's really our collaboration helped me also to better understand a specific paradigm, and it's to be careful sometimes about certain words we use. So we could get bugged into assessment, for instance. What does it mean, an assessment? What should be an assessment? But once we pass that kind of lingo, we're having fun. And it's very enjoyable.
Yeah, I can see that you two have fun working together. Hey, Victorio, our Mr. Green headphone man, do you have any questions for these two?
I suppose I would like to know the future plans for continuity of this program for the next maybe couple of years. If it's going to be any advance in the implementation or any changes.
Well, I think off the top of my head, at the moment, the paper is an elective paper in the undergrad program. And so we've been quite lucky to have quite small numbers in our class, which has allowed us to sort of try things out and for the students to have a really good sort of experience.
Right.
But because of the sort of shift south and the prioritising of a paper like this and its different teaching methods, means that probably next year it's going to become a compulsory paper. So our numbers may go up to 50, 60. And so I think scalability is like our biggest issue, really.
Yeah.
And we started to anticipate it. And we need to look for next year program. Well, again, it depends if it will be validated to be compulsory or not.
Okay.
But to look at different strategy in terms of blended learning and to get probably more tutorials online and to make more movies about the core basic knowledge that we want to make sure that everyone should have.
Yeah.
And to spend different class time, to spend differently the class time. Because right now we're teaching across 2 campuses as well, North Campus and South Campus. So 2 hours at North and 2 hours at South. And we repeat the same content, but with different groups. So if we go up to 80 students, 100 students, that's not sustainable.
Yes.
So it will be a different way to deliver basically some of the content without losing the spirit and the one-on-one individual advices that we started to develop.
Which is sort of challenging because some of the real benefits have been the quite sort of individualized teaching that's possible when you have a small class. And some of the, I'm thinking particularly of like some of the Pacific learners who have, really flourished as sort of individuals because they've said, that they've never been sort of allowed, felt that they've had permission to think in this way or to have sort of broad flexibility and can I really study this and sort of reflecting their sort of proud cultural identity. So things like that, we need to sort of find ways to hold that within a larger class.
Yeah, we've got just one quote just to answer Victoria as well. That one is quite good. So this semester, that's a quote from a student. This semester was one of the best courses I ever have taken. I enjoy how Amanda and Laurent allow the students to take control of their own ideas and map them out, and sooner or later create the ideal project. So that's that kind of feedback we received, which is very encouraging. But going to a different amount of students, our aim will be to maintain that kind of quality and enjoyment from a student's point of view. And so, it's very challenging.
It's not possible to clone it. Like instead to grow, just to clone the system instead to maybe for you physically, it will be more challenging because the time.
Yes.
Yeah, and one of the key things we've done the last couple of years is have these multiple cycles of oral feedback where they're just having their initial ideas, 3 slides, talk about it for 5 minutes, and they build and build and build on these same things. And for them, it's been a very new concept to sort of redo old ideas, but also the paper is about communication, and it helps them to sort of overcome many of their sort of oral communication. But of course, oral communication has challenges when you've got, a big class. So we may have to shift to some using digital tools for audio recording these.
Yeah.
So Noel, do you have any questions for Laurent and Amanda? I think I've caught Noel in the middle of the conversation. Okay.
But can I add another one to answer also Victoria's point? We're discussing at the moment about micro credentials, badges and all that sort of stuff. 3 years ago, I started to introduce the idea of teaching in a different way as well, which means rather than having 2 hours every week, which I found less and less productive, especially with the students, because they don't do much outside of those 2 hours anyway. It's a general feeling. It's to organize block courses. So, for instance, 2 days immersive workshops. So, rather than to have, for instance, 2 hours every week for 12 weeks, which means 24 hours, it would be probably more beneficial for the students to have 2 days of 8 hours, so 16 hours done. And within those 16 hours to have a kind of turnover of a lot of students and keeping that kind of workshop session and a kind of burst, and then to say, off you go for 2 or 3 weeks and let's catch up again in 4 weeks' time. And then we can have another session of 4 hours and the following 4 hours. So it's also, I think it could work like that, but it's also for us to reinvent and to keep that kind of interest from the students. And some of them could be even more interested, especially people who are working.
Also, how do you think with the iterations we have, the more past students will have to draw on? Because I think we've talked, about having some of the students come back as guests. So maybe having like a pool of like mentors that can actually act as sort of tutors. Is another thing to think about.
Tapping on the alumni network and becoming ambassador as well of the paper, which is also a different philosophy, And because one of the students said it was quite amazing that even when we finish the course, we keep posting things in the community. So we keep learning beyond the course and the deadlines and the assessments.
Yeah, and they see the value in that.
The real value,
Yeah, cool. Hey, well, thanks for your time, you two, and it's been great to have a chat, and really exciting to see what you're doing. So I'm sure that you'll be available for people to get hold of you if they want to. And
we might appear at next year's SOTEL conferencing.
Special guests at the Scholarship of Technology Enhanced Learning Symposium here in Auckland in South Campus on 25th of February, I think it is. So something to look forward to.
Yeah, and now that France is a world champion, I'm more expensive if you want to hire me than she is.
Yeah. I think Victoria has something to say about that. But anyway.
I can do something without him, though.
Rubbish.
Okay. Well, I think we'll sign off there. But thank you once again, Laurent and Amanda. It's been great to have you this week. And yes, exciting to see the changes you bring into the curriculum. See ya.
Bye, Tom.
Bye. Bye.